year. So did you bring in champagne?
This will be for the 20 years next March.
Where's the envelope? What's wrong with you?
I'm not sure, but you know, it's not planning or coming series. I'm sure it will be right.
Good morning, everyone. So this is the 50th NMRG meeting, IETF 103. We will start in 1 minute. The blue sheets are already circulating, so if you arrive, please make sure you sign the blue sheets. So IETF follows the IETF policy. So here is the note well. A number of aspects to be aware if you are attending IETF meeting. In order to start our meeting also, we will need at least 2 volunteers, one for minute taker and one for the Jabber scribe or Miteco scribe. It's very important. If we don't have one, we cannot have the meeting. Hello, everyone. Don't look at your laptop. Look at me. Anyone willing to be a minute taker? Or thanks, Dan. Are you taking minutes or on the Miteco?
I'm taking
Minutes. Okay. Can we have someone to log in on Miteco just to relay comments from the room and or comments from the Miteco? Okay, thanks, Jefferson. Thank you very much, guys. Okay, very good. So we have 1 hour meeting, which is quite short, but we have a number of important things to discuss. So the agenda is quite simple. I'll start with a short introduction, highlighting status of the research group, a number of information for you for next year meetings, and a couple of other stuff. Then we will have a session on some summaries of the different progress of the research agenda items, namely intent-based networking, autonomic networking, and use of artificial intelligence for network management. This meant to be a very short presentation, just to give a status update. We may have 1 or 2 questions, comments, but the idea is really to take most of the time of this session to have a first discussion on the future of NMRG. And I would like your attention for this discussion. I would like to proceed using 2 channels. First, for sure, discussion in the room using mic and what we have here, but also Etherpad session. So I give you the link to the Etherpad. I would like everyone who are willing to contribute to the discussion to also put statement or whatever ideas on this Etherpad so that we can also have a bit more inputs than just people going to the mic, and also for the people that will be remote. It will be easier for us to capture the different ideas. So if you can have a look at the pad. It will be very useful for the follow-up of the discussion. The best way for you, I mean. Thank you. A very quick refresh on what we have as currently defined in our research agenda. This is not limiting any activity of the research group, but this is some activity which we agreed in the past that we are willing to work on, that we have some plans and probably some documents, some work in progress. So intent-based networking, AI for network management, and autonomic networking 3.0. Lisandro and myself have published a bit more information on those 3 items in a I will say short paper in IEEE Standards magazine last year. So if you want to have a bit more ideas about the content, the milestones, and where we would like to go with these documents or with these themes, you can go into this document. You will have an update anyway with the presentation after that. In terms of documents related to the research group, so we don't have current documents in any kind of review or research group document, but we still have around 6 or 7, depending how we count, active documents, individual documents related to NMRG. I will say half of them are relating to the current research agenda, which is good. And we have also some new or renewed proposals that have been, I will say, proposed or steered towards the research group. And we still have to discuss about those documents. Mainly they are around network slicing, new approaches to, future networks, and that kind of aspect. So we'd like to encourage that you have a look at those documents, and it will be part of the discussion we would like on the future of NMRG. This is just a proposal for next year meetings. I think most of the meeting we will have will be collocated with IETF meetings. So this is a tentative list of next year meeting. There is one meeting location in discussion with IM 2019, which will be in Washington in April. We used to, according to the poll we've made a couple of years ago, we wanted to also collocate some of the NMRG meeting with the network management communities outside IETF, RTF, essentially towards IEEE, IFIP communities. So IM is one of those targets. This is still under discussion, mainly for a planning aspect in terms of what kind of session we would like to have. It will be a general meeting or a topic-specific meeting. Of course, what we would like to run also is part of the evolution of NMRG is to renew the question, the poll to the research group participants about the clear interest to collocate meetings with other events, or essentially maybe other scientific conferences or maybe also industry events on topics that are related or different to network management. So IM norms are clearly on the scope of network management, but we can think about other conferences, which can be on, for instance, AI, machine learning specific or multi-agents, or there are very different types of conferences we could think about collocating, but there is a need to assess if there is a clear interest, a clear value to collocate such events. It can also be with organizing joint meetings, specific topics with other research groups, but also with other groups in other standardization group, development organization, or with other user groups like operator, NANOG, RIPE type of meetings. So your inputs are really welcome. I will send an email to the mailing list to start a poll collecting your views on these collocation meetings. So now we are in the second part of the agenda. I will ask I think Jefferson, you are first to speak, to give some quick summary on the 3 research agenda items.
So good morning, I'm Jefferson.
You can have the clicker if you like.
Okay, thank you, Lohan. So I'm doing this presentation on behalf of Alex, who had to leave yesterday. So, oops, it's not. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, so in fact, this is just a status update because there isn't any update on the draft itself. So there is initial discussions on this at the IETF 100 and 101, and also some discussion on the NMRG interim meeting at NOMS 2018. So the discussions led to 3 drafts. The first one, it's a draft on terminology, or the structure, the work was structured as 3 drafts. The first one on terminology, some definitions and concepts, and this is the draft that this presentation is about. The second one is intent definition and how to express intent. It's a draft that has to be made about human and machine interface aspects, and also the relationship with data models, for example, the use of Yang and this kind of stuff, and also layer interdependencies. And the third draft will be some architecture and framework reference architecture. So there is this draft motion NMRG network intent concepts, which I believe it is expired by now, I think. And this draft is about how to handle the intent and how to validate networks that are behaving like as intended. So there is some updates from the previous version of the draft, especially on editorial stuff and tightening and some added references. So intent defined networking is kind of a buzzword right now. So the basic idea is to to define what you want from the network and not how to get it. And this is obviously something that is decided, but at least, and I'm avoiding the rhetorical Alex question, this is not new. So for example, in 90s, there's a lot of investigation on policy-based management and how to define, for example, high-level policies to steer the system, and how to leave, for example, the specific knobs that had to be turned to the policy handlers in the system, networking management system. Also, there is some relation with service models and provisioning. So, for example, how to define the services and how to leave the mappings of high-level services to low-level configurations, how to allocate resources, and so on. And also, there are lots of models on the information hierarchies and abstractions, such as TMN, FCAPS, and other models that they try to address this kind of a description of the system. So there is some points that we can make about the intent. For example, how it differs from, for example, policies, or it's some way to reboot policies or reboot service models, or is an integration of these different concepts. And if it's different, how we can proceed, how we can try to, to address this kind of problems. What are the implications, for example, for different protocols? So, differentiating from service models, which are instances of service that are provided to customers, for example, in the RFC 8309, we can discuss about orchestration and mapping to underlying resources. And there's this concept of machine-to-machine interactions and flow-through provisioning. On the other hand, policy, or more usually a set of rules that, for example, use some kind of model such as ICA or event condition action or some variation of that. They are usually imperative, so they specify what to do under some circumstance for the time of the day or something like that. And they are usually machine-to-machine interactions. And at some point in the network, it's necessary to have some handling in order to transform this high-level abstraction to low-level configuration on the network. In the end, intent is a high declarative policy. So we say in this, they say in this draft that it's a kind of a policy. So it's a declarative in the sense that it defines what is wanted from the network and not how to get it. And usually this is done for the interaction between the humans, the human administrator, and the network management system, or the devices per se. And it's necessary some network renders that will transform this high-level abstraction and for example, they have to determine what's the logic in order to enforce that this intent is performed on the system. So there are some discussion items on intent. For example, it's necessary to define intent narrowly or broadly. It's necessary some definition to work on. So, for example, it's necessary to put the things in a common context for network management, or for example, do some kind of intent washing and start again on this concept. There is, for example, in the ANIMA documents, there is different, different kinds of intents. For example, the operational intent, or service intent, or flow intent. But there are some people that say that it's just one intent, and at some point the network should, divide these different kinds of intents. And also this discussion on the hierarchy of intents. So intent is just for a device, or for the network, or for a service. So this is something that needs to be also to be defined in a better way. So besides that, probably it's necessary to have a reference architecture in order to provide and to enforce the intents. Also, there is some discussion on the function areas that intent can be applied, for example, configuration or fault management or performance or something like this. And there's a lot of discussion on that. Yesterday on ANIMA working group meeting, there's some talk about intent and how to proceed, and some mentions to the NMRG work. So I think that is it.
Yeah, just before we get to some questions, also a quick update. At last IETF, after the IETF, we had a dedicated workshop on intent-based networking and in ITS Montreal. And so we had a good discussion, some also additional plans for new people and new contribution expected. And also in the meantime, there have been a individual contribution, a new draft on intent classification that has been shared with the group. So I think we have a number of people and also inputs coming in, and we need to maybe a bit intensify our efforts to structure it and make it a bit more visible inside the group, and also maybe towards ANIMA and other resources, other groups that may have interest to see this work progressing. Other SDOs, for instance.
Dejan Bogdanovic, Volta Networks. I believe that this, if I understood it correctly, that this document will talk mainly about taxonomy of the terms that will be used. And in my opinion, it's a little bit too late to discuss this in the research group, because it's already very actively discussed in the engineering communities.
Jeff Tensura, Abstra. Very little about closed loop, about validation. All of intent without proper validation is meaningless. So wouldn't it be good to define what exactly the meaning of difference delta between operational and intended state? How do we integrate it in larger graph or model of things? How they interact with each other? So you define service, policy, and some other layers. They all interact with each other. And as Dean said, there's a lot of work in the engineering community on how to bring different models together. So you go from service to network to device model. But as you stream your telemetry back, what does it really mean? And this work clearly belongs here to identify this intersection between class validation loop and intent.
First comment, as my personal view is not, maybe I'm not agree with the writers of the document, but I think that at some point we need some clear definition of intent for the IETF or the RTF. So even if this is done outside, and we can use this experience from an engineering point of view, I believe that we need a document in the IETF RTF, and also I think that it's necessary that this document clearly define if there is just one intent or if there's this division on different kinds of intents. So I need that this must be addressed in this document. This is my...
Okay, thank you. If there is any, more discussion, we can either have it as the second part of the discussion or also on the mailing list or in the corridors. Thank you. I think Jefferson, you can stay. You have the next one is also yours. I
thought this was, I was the third one.
No, I wanted you just to make one shot. So.
Okay, so thank you. So me again. Good. So this is a summary of autonomic network, which is one of the topics that maybe will be on the recharter of the NMRG. So this is a recap of a previous presentation at NMRG. So it will be very quick, but any comment we can give on the mic or in the mailing list. So first, defining an autonomic system, we usually talk about a set of properties which make a system autonomic. The first one, which is the system is automatic in the sense it can self-control its internal functions and operations. The second one, it is adaptive, so it can change its configuration, state, and function according some role, some intent, for example. And it's aware, so it can monitor its operational context. So there are different set of definitions for autonomic system. So, for example, yesterday at the ANIMA working group meeting, people are talking about the self-chop, which is, I believe, it's the most known one. But there are others like MAPK, ODA, and others. So this concept can be applied for the complete network lifecycle, for example, considering installation, commissioning, and operating of the system. And when a network has all these autonomic concepts applied in the whole life cycle, we call it an autonomic networking. And this is an area which is usually addressed by the network management area, like the IAM, NOM, CNSM conference. So it also, I believe, it belongs to NMRG. So doing just a quick recap on academic research, the first mentions on this term are around 2005 and 2006. So there are several antecedents for that. For example, there's the several studies of using artificial intelligence in network management in the 90s. Then around 2007 and 2009, there are a lot of momentum in this area. For example, there is the IMENIX framework of investigation. I don't know if this is the right term for that. The network of excellence. And one of the deliverables of this initiative was autonomic management challenge and solution. So there were a lot of like investigation initiatives on this term, like in that time. And then there's a decrease in interest around 2011, 2013, maybe because there are other technologies that were gaining momentum at that time, for example, SDN and NFV. In the context of IETF, IRTF, there are several efforts. For example, there were 3 autonomic for network management workshops at NMRG meetings. And in these workshops, there are drafts on gap analysis, definitions, network configuration, bootstrapping, detection of SLA violations, and lessons learned and other stuff like that. And there are several outcomes of these NMRG workshops. For example, we had the UCAN BOF, the use cases of autonomic networking BOF, which was held at IETF 90, and the product of that is the ANIMA working group. There were also some RFCs, the 7575 and 7576, which are some definition, terminology, and gap analysis for autonomic networking. And there are also related efforts on different working groups and research groups. For example, SUPA, HomeNet, SDN, RG, NFV-RG, NML-RG, and so on. So this is a term that appeared and appears in a lot of works in the IETF or RTF. In the case of the ANIMA working group, the first charter of the group, it's really precise on the terms, on the milestones and the topics that should be addressed by the working group. So, for example, there is the development of protocol specifications for the discovery and negotiation of autonomic nodes, and the protocol which was developed for that is GRASP. Then there is also development of a bootstrapping a trust infrastructure, and there is BRISC for that. And there is also the autonomic control plane, which is the ACP. So this was done like this, using just a precise and defined set of work items in order to, avoid boiling the ocean, considering that autonomic networking is kind of, like a big thing. And at that point, the charter said that unchartered work is encouraged as an individual submission or an NMRG submission. So there is this connection between what is done in ANIMA or what is not done in ANIMA and NMRG submissions. And in November 2018, there is this point to recharter ANIMA and maybe to refocus scope or close or something like this. And yesterday there were some discussions on that, but I think it's not defined at this point what will be the next ANIMA charter, so it's open. But still, the term it's important. It's still on the in the sense it's still appearing. For example, in the Host Speak series tomorrow there is a talk on autonomous network. So we can say that there is some connection on that, and there is also lots of work about cognitive networks and intelligence-driven networks, and also intent-based network that are also there's some connections to autonomic networking. So I think it's easy to say that this autonomic network is still something that it's interesting or has interest in the networking community. And there are also new application areas for autonomic networking. For example, programmable infrastructures like SDN and NFV. There's new areas of application like 5G, IoT, Smart X. And also, and I think this is an important thing, that it's needed to have a better link with operation communities like RIPE and NOG and others. So some people say that one of the problems of autonomous networking is the lack of real use deployments, and the guys that can can show some how can I say can bring some information on real deployments are the operators. So this is a good source of information for autonomic networking. So. And just to finish the presentation, considering the NMRG, the question is, there is a need, there is interest, and there is energy on NMRG for our work on autonomics or autonomics 3.0. So, and this is a rhetorical question. And so if the answer is yes, there are right now 4 proposed efforts. The first one is the intent-based networking, which is, I presented before the work from Alex, Lohan, and Lisandro on this. There is also the possibility of having work on artificial intelligence, on machine learning for network management, which is also related to autonomic networking. And there is a draft on that right now. I don't know if I think it's active. And the third possible effort would be an integration with network automation approach, for example, zero-touch network, or other thing that is it's perceived as important from other SDOs. And also something that maybe can be interesting is to revisit the RFC 7575 and 7576. So this could lead to a better understanding that what it's expected to have in an autonomic network in the future, or even to understand what are the gaps that ANIMA has on its charter that can be worked as a research manner, so by the NMRG.
Dan Bogdanovich, Volta Networks. So I I think there is something to be done earlier than that. These are some nice, interesting area to research, but there are some more urgent ones. Autonomic networking brings some new perspectives into network management requirements, especially with regards to the ACP. How will you manage as a single system, a highly distributed system where each one of them should act autonomously in certain ways, but as a unified system in the other ways, depending from your perspective. And this is one area that I haven't seen much research done. I haven't seen it addressed within the IETF, and there is a step in between needed for us to be able to effectively solve some of the challenges that you are proposing, for the work to be done here.
Great.
Rick Taylor, Airbus. Just to answer Dan, and actually to answer your question on the previous slide, the deep space communications community has a lot of experience with autonomy, not only for networking, but also for sensor platforms and things like that. And they have brought some work to the IETF on how they manage autonomous devices. They took the work to DTN because that's where the comms work is going. We did a hot RFC at the last IETF about it, and we're sort of going around the groups at the moment. So if you are interested in what we're doing with autonomous management for individual devices, and it's exactly as Dan said, you've got to have the individual devices, particularly in massively distributed networks such as the solar system. The devices have got to have some autonomy, and then the network autonomy emerges on top of that. So if people are interested, DTN, it's tomorrow morning. There'll be another presentation there.
Okay, thank you, Rick.
Bin Liu from Huawei, and I would like to propose another work you just mentioned in previous slides, which is self-chop. Actually, in last IETF, I presented a new draft. The main content is to discuss the self-chop things. I think people have some interest in that. Firstly, we can come up with a taxonomy of the self-chop, whether people in a community or the industry can have a consensus. Okay, in the network life cycle, there are maybe 3 or 4, 5 aspects of the self-chop. And second, I think it might be useful that we do some analysis of the self-chop technologies in different scenarios, the DC network, metro network, backhaul network, etc., and to see whether some emerging new technologies such as N10 based network or machine learning and artificial intelligence can help these self-chop to be applicable in real network. Yeah, thank you.
There was a draft from Costas that it's expired. That I think that
quite a long time ago.
A long time ago, but I believe that one of the ideas of Costas was to address that, like some of the points that you made. So one thing that we can do is like revive this draft and try to frame it in a way that you were thinking, Bill. So we can talk about this later.
Yeah, we have to close the line after Will and be quick because we have still another presentation and I would like to save time for the discussion.
Yeah, I guess I'm lucky, huh? So this is Will from Huawei. Actually, I have support to do something here because this is really the whole industry is looking for, actually, not only in IETF, but also in other standard body and as well as the open source consortia. And one information in addition to your previous slides is that actually last year in 2017, we create a ISG in industry standard specification group in ETSI called ENI, Experiential Network Intelligence. Actually, last year I was here presenting the progress of that. So until now, we already, studied and published the 5 work items, and we have the first version white paper. We have the use cases for network intelligence, requirement, architecture, and we already started 2 POCs. One is from China Telecom, the other from Telecom Mobile, Italia Mobile. So we are interested in cooperating with our IETF work here. And I remember we already sent the liaison, I guess. Maybe, yes. This is up to the chair.
Mhm.
Okay, that's the information I brought. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Pedro, if you can hear us remotely, can you please go into the line to speak? That's the best part of the meeting.
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, very clear and loud.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, your slides are on the screen.
Oh, I don't see them, so. Okay, I know. I'm not gonna see them. Well, what I am going to present now is very brief. I will be very briefly. Is the update after my previous presentation on how to introduce the AI into network management. In this case, would be some evolution. Is how to extend this intelligent network management that we are conceiving right now beyond software and logical boundaries. Please next slide. This the idea here is to first question why the boundaries must be crossed. As the idea is that management operations are limited today by the ability of human administration and also management solutions. But they
Pedro?
also involve other objects. Yes.
Pedro? Yeah, just sorry.
Yes.
Can you maybe close the video stream because we have some.
Yes, I will. Sorry. You see, if I find it, how to? Sorry. I will do it. Please wait a second. My first time with this, and I don't see how to do it. Sorry.
I think if you go on the participant window widget on the left, you have your mic and a kind of webcam
Yes.
icon.
But I don't see. Sorry, I don't see how to. Here. Oh, sorry. Yes. Now. It's okay now?
Okay. Please continue to speak. We will see if we can proceed this way. We still have your video stream active.
Okay. Okay. So, I'm sorry. Okay, I asked. I will.
Pedro, can you speak?
Well, sorry. The idea is that today management operations are limited
Pedro, please go
by the
on.
ability of.
We can hear you, and
hey?
the video stream is gone.
Okay. No sending video. Okay. If you can hear me, that's perfect. Okay. So management operations again exist are limited by the ability of humans. No, what they can do in the time that they can do it, etc. And the management solution that we are using today, let's say automation software, etc.
Pedro.
Yes.
Pedro.
Yes.
Pedro. Sorry, but
yes.
The audio stream very difficult to hear.
Wow. I don't know what's happening now.
Pedro?
Yes,
Pedro,
yes.
please. Can you hear us?
Sorry. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes. Okay. We really have a lot of difficulty to hear you clearly. It's very noisy. So my suggestion is to just cut you, and I will give you the presentation.
If this is fine, I will continue using.
Okay. So sorry for this. I'll try to read the slides. I know a bit what Pedro was going to mention, but I'm not an expert in here. So, okay, he's here again. Maybe let's give it a try. Can you try to speak, Pedro? No. Okay. So, on the topic of the use of AI for network management, the idea was to consider a number of requirements or aspects specific to that. The management operation can be quite limited in terms of the ability of the administrator or the management solution or the objects to have coordinated actions. Human operators are not omnipotent, so they cannot do and see everything. But still, there is also the management solutions that are usually per silo or confined to a particular domain. So it's difficult to have a system-wide or network-wide view and coordination. And so actions are quite separate and disparate in nature. There is the aspect of autonomic network devices, which we have just talked about previously. And but still they have to have some level of interaction with, I would say, a manager, which can be a human or another system. And so they need to provide the ends for the management plane of the networks. And the last part is the aspect of objects, which can all be intelligent to some extent, in order to resolve some of the management problems in a distributed way, if objects can concentrate and collaborate to solve their own part of the problem. Some of the requirements, standardized protocols are essential for the object to interact freely. Object can come from different vendors, must be able to interoperate. Richer outcomes can be expected from the resulting bigger opportunities to cooperate. Homogeneous interfaces based on ontologies or semantic approach to facilitate the object integration. So using adapters. If we are using adapters, it can weaken the distributed system and reduce its performance. Here, the implementation of distributed intelligence, reasoning, and unfamiliar problem resolution can enhance the behavior of the network. So to, for instance, empower the data, information, knowledge, wisdom pyramid, how to, have different stages of information being enriched in these stages. Also to step out the single point of failure for the centralized management approaches. On the area of network optimization, to make it becomes a cooperative task, where all objects, being physical, virtual, or even human operator, can cooperate to evolve the network towards its objectives. So it's really a collaboration between the different entities involved in the network behavior, network management, but also an analysis and recognition of different traffic patterns, which can enhance the distributed intelligence, enhanced by the distributed intelligence. Ability of evolution is increased, more objects but less complexity, but also a property of self-healing that can become a widespread reality. Okay, so sorry for being only reading the slides. I think Pedro will have much more knowledge about how he would like this to be presented. Just to make a final, maybe concluding remark on this, the use of different AI techniques for network management is an area we think is in scope of our research agenda. One of the challenges in this area is that there are many activities going on in artificial intelligence or machine learning techniques, especially different types of machine learning techniques, which are not always suited to network management tasks or network characteristics. So there is, I think, a first level of discussion to have, which is in that space, what's precisely we would like to investigate, which is specific to network and network management. For me, it will be of low value to just allow any kind of AI or machine learning techniques to be presented in this research group. This is not the idea. The idea is really to understand the relationship between those existing or new techniques, new approaches for the evolution and the future of network management. I will close the discussion here for that because I think we have time now to address the discussion part on the evolution of NMRG. I would like just to thank Pedro. Sorry for the technical problem. Thank you, Pedro, at least for willing to present remotely. Okay, so now we are already here. So for the last part of the meeting, yes, please, Rick.
Sorry, Rick Taylor again, just on the last presentation. I think it was really good. It contained lots of really good points, but I think all of us in this room with an interest and all the other SDOs outside the IETF, we need to actually answer some of these questions. It's great that we're developing a good taxonomy on which we can base documents. It's great that we're highlighting what the problem space is, and I understand this work needs to be done, but we have to get on and do this now. We all know it's important, which is why we're here, but we have to do this somehow.
Yeah, fully support what you said, and I think one of the part of the discussion I would like to have for the evolution of NMRG is to understand chunk of work we decide to do and progress on that, not just to remain at the eye level. Well, can you just,
Okay.
What's your point? Because I would like to...
So my point is very simple. In addition to this gentleman's comments, actually I like the last slide, but however, I think there is one missing point because this trend of AI or intelligence is based on the data, the big data technology. However, in network world area, so we cannot collect enough data. And I'm seeing that in IETF, there are some working groups that are working on this telemetry or related work. However, I believe that those work are the base of the intelligence here. So we need that work done either in those working group or in our NMRG here. That's my point.
Okay.
This is Will, W-I-L.
Okay, I will go through the slide, Jeff, because we don't have a lot of time and I really would like to give the floor to the room to address some of the discussion we would like to have, and it will be an ongoing process. But for the future of NMRG, we are still in the selection process of an additional co-chair. There have been some issues for that, but hopefully soon we'll see an announcement for this. Couple of slides just to highlight how I see this evolution of the NMRG. So some important questions and principles we need to go through again if you want to, I will say, approach this the right way. What is our shared goal? We are a research group, not only research individuals. So we need to understand and maybe define more precisely what is the collective outcome we would like to achieve with the research group. Okay, as I said, just presenting work and writing draft is not a goal. Okay, so also who is the public and which are the communities that are involved or that should be involved or that we would like to target. It's important to understand if we target service provider, end users, the research community, the industry community, the standardization community. So to understand our goal, our objectives, where we want to deliver. So that because what we will deliver can be quite different depending on who is the public. So we have to define our scope with respect to this question and also who will benefit from the outcome of the research group. Also, what is our approach, our way of working? So NMRG is a quite old research group. We have been generation of different researchers coming here, but we can also think about how we want to work. I mean, a research group is not a working group. We don't have the same constraints. We are pretty free to make our meetings, our work the way we want. I mean, a draft is only a tool for IETF. We can use it because we are associated with ISOC, but we are not, this is not prescriptive. So we can work our own way, and we have to maybe discuss this for the future of NMRG. Also very important, what is the link of this research group with IETF? I think it's important that we can benefit from the collocation of these groups. to benefit and maybe impact or have some influence towards IETF. I will just go through the slide and then we can have the discussion. Also, some aspects, pluridisciplinarity. I think it's very important that we consider it's very important to have different complementary skills and competencies to solve problems. We don't want to be only on one type of competency, one type of discipline. And cross-fertilization, also, as it was said several times, we can use the knowledge and the inputs from the different groups, but also we can provide knowledge to other groups. So this is very important to enrich our understandings, broaden our views in order to address the right problems the right way. A bit of the process. We can be more or less disruptive or incremental with the evolution of the NMRG. I know I use the term rechartering, but we don't have to formally write a new charter. This is one of the possible outcomes. It can be just we define new research themes, new research items. So we have the gradient, can be whatever we decide. There is no urgency. We need to take time to make sure we make the right decision, and we can still work while we are progressing to redefine the scope of NMRG. So we can take up to next year meetings. I would like to invite also some inspiring talks from people from this community, other communities on new domains to make talks at the different future meetings so that we can also, again, this aspect of cross-fertilization, make us inspiring on what could be the hot topics. So in terms of organization, do we want to concentrate on a set of hot topics and we make like a specialized meeting on that, or we want to have more research challenges and cover them in a more sustained way? But also very important, I think, to capture the discussion we will have for the coming months. I mean, one tool could be the wiki, maybe not the best interactive way, but at least I would like that we don't lose what will be our discussion. So we have the pad already today, we have the mailing list, but we have also maybe a way to centralize a bit this information so that everyone can also improve and refer to that. I will not go through that, but this is just to highlight some ideas I have on my side about potential topics for discussion, for a bit provocative sometimes, about things we can investigate in this group. But now the floor is also for the room and the people online also.
Dejan Bogdanovic. I would also like to define here what time frame are we looking to address. Should our work be applicable in the 1 to 3 year time frame? 3 to 7?
That's not a good question.
No?
No,
Okay. Well, wait a second then.
Sorry, Richard, jumping the line, not jumping the line, but jumping on the end of Dan's question. I don't think that is a valid question. This is a research group. It should always be looking at both the near future and it's aspirationally into the distance, trying to see, what is coming out of the really cutting edge academia way before it hits even the edges of what industry is looking at, but also looking at the demands that are coming from industry in terms of we have problems that we're not quite sure what the overriding solutions are. Just jumping in. Okay. And following on from that, what I actually stood up to say was where I see the IRTF working really well with the IETF is guiding what individual working groups are doing, particularly in terms of management, because every single working group tries to do management for their particular specific little area. And then there are groups, we've done the SNMP thing, we've sort of done the NetConfy thing, and now we're looking at the next standardized management protocols for various areas. The IRTF working groups, I feel, work best when they are seeing what all the IETF groups are doing and saying, that's nice, but are you aware they're doing that over there? And this plays into a bigger picture on what's happening in the research community. And that sort of steering and guidance and coordination, I think, is a real benefit for an IRTF group.
Dejan Bogdanovic. You mentioned the important linkage between the IETF and the IRTF, and IRTF making the IETF aware of certain things. The problem there that sometimes we tend to jump over certain fields and not pay attention. There is a medium that is not being covered. And then although the research community was aware of those research, it wasn't sexy enough in order to do it, and it just gets lost. And then it comes to the IETF, and IETF is completely unprepared. So making sure that we're also covering some medium-term items are important, because I think sometimes we're putting the like the cart in front of the horse, and we are forgetting about some more near midterm problems that are coming up.
Rick Taylor again, just responding to that. I completely agree, but I think it's the IRTF working group's responsibility to balance those two things. Because yeah, research is looking at the next thing, always the next thing. And that is the cart before the horse sometimes. But I think the IRTF can straddle that, can have a foot in what the cool stuff that, the young kids are coming up with for 2020, 2050, and what engineering is actually happening in the working groups and what really works and what the industry needs now and tomorrow. So I think you can still balance that.
Okay, thank you.
So coming from IETF side of things, if you jump to new thing before solving all things, eventually lose credibility. So it's cool to jump to new thing and say, we're going to be artificial intelligence over blockchains and solve world hunger, but there's some stuff to be solved. And if you look at this year specifically, it's not a future money, present. There's a lot of intent-driven, interesting stuff people are working on. So there's something to learn from the industry and trying to identify problems they're trying to solve. Because there's a lot of problems that are unsolved that still require a lot of hacking and under table work. So rather than jumping 20 years from now, let's again try to reconvene what IETF is doing and help them to, if not coordinate, at least working on top, because research group IETF is looking a bit ahead, but there should be tangible outcomes and eventual handover to engineering to build this stuff. Otherwise, what's the point?
I hear you, Jeff, and I'm speaking as an individual. I think this is one of the questions we should address, not maybe at only research group level, but maybe IETF or relationship between IETF. IETF is the type of research and a bit the anticipation we need to have. I think there are very diverse views about this. I understand your view, but for instance, for the past years in IETF, the message was quite clear that IETF is not meant to do kind of pre-standardization. It's meant to do research, advanced research, the excellence of research. So you see, it's very different direction of what you're mentioning, that there are current problems that maybe IETF can anticipate and provide, inputs to the working group. So we need to reconcile those different views and choose for our research group what are the paths. Maybe we can combine, have two different levels. I don't know if we have the means to do that, but
sure, right balance.
It's not an easy thing to decide on this.
But the point being, you are doing something for sake of eventually solving the problem, not because it's cool and next time you just jump ahead and you do something else.
Speaking as an individual, in the NOMCOM 2018, we asked many candidates about IETF-IRTF linkage. And IRTF raising awareness of some work in the academia that is useful to the problems is very helpful to the IETF, so that the IETF will not be surprised with the emergence of a technology that suddenly becomes a private standard within the industry, and we had, essentially no input to help define it, and you end up with a very fractioned ecosystem that is causing the problems to the underlying industry to deliver the needed services to them. So the awareness is the very important part.
And Paolo Lucente, to stress on two comments that Dan made. I myself am involved with, for example, the whole streaming telemetry, and I feel the pain a lot, right? So precisely what Dan was saying. So it looks like that a private, initiative was fostering on one side, and I feel that, for example, IETF was totally unprepared to build a counter plan or a plan for something that is open and shared by the community and things like that. Maybe this is a little bit of a fail of research that was not anticipating that years ago, for example.
Rick Taylor again. I totally agree with Dan. I thought that was a really nice summary, but I think the balance of going back to your question of, is the IRTF about keeping the IETF aware of what's going on in research, or is it about fostering research? I think you are all pretty smart guys. Why can't you do both?
Yeah, so now I comment a bit from my recent experiences as a chair, because I was also a researcher. I contributed to NMRG or other research group. I think my experience is that the topic is very important. I mean, the topics we are investigating are, of course, very important, but there is no miracle. We need the resources to address this. And most of the time, it's not that only the topic is enough. We need to have the right resources at the right moment. I think just an example about autonomic networking. This was research for the past 10, 15 years sometimes. But there have been a kind of several people coming from different backgrounds at the same time, making some meetings and presentation in NMRG. So there was this kind of coordination of effort, and then it created some both, and eventually it becomes a working group. And I think if we don't have this coordination of effort, I mean, people are really willing to contribute on a sustained way, more than one person, sorry, then we can achieve something. Otherwise, if we just have good ideas, good topics, but we just have presentation and nobody is joining forces to achieve something, as you mentioned, we need to do the things. Then it will still nice slides and nice research agenda items, but not much progress.
Rick Taylor again. Now, this is with my IETF working group chair hat on. You can ask us to ask our working groups and say, do you know what, the IRTF, NMRG, or any other research group, they're doing some cool stuff that you should probably be aware of. Go jump on their mailing list, go, everyone has a spare Tuesday, hopefully. They're meeting on Tuesday morning, go see what they're doing, see if you can help. I mean, you can ask us IETF working groups to chip in if you think it's relevant to us.
Yeah, I think this is an important point, as we were mentioning about discussing this link between IETF, either through the chairs, whatever research or working group chairs. I think there are, again, examples that it's already working. I mean, especially maybe because of the heritage, but ANIMA, the research group chairs, but also the participants in ANIMA are quite aware of what's happening here. And there is even a kind of intent was one of the items in the initial ANIMA, not the charter, but things that can be investigated. And the feedback from ANIMA was that it was too early, unclear. And so they really say, NMRG, please work on that, clarify some of the aspects, because if we want to be able to do work in the working group, maybe we need more inputs from you. So this is just an example.
Dan Bogdanovic, some ideas and topics post-NetConf Young era. That should have been done a long time ago, because this is a 20-year-old concept that is now being standardized, and we are realizing that as we are building the working systems, that those tools, those architectures are really not addressing what we need to move forward, that what we will need for autonomic networks to build. We cannot use those tools today. And we need something in the...
Maybe it's late, but it's still valid.
So in addition to Rick's comments, actually, I think there are 2 points key that this research group need to think about. So one is about the continuity. So as we already done some work previously, so we still need to continue this direction. For example, the existing, our draft in this research group, such as intent or the other related work. The second is about the creative. So if you look at all the research groups in RTF, so some of the research groups are closed because either they are lack of creative or it's already implementing, so we don't need to do research anymore. So I think what Laurent has done, especially for those workshops, is very good to trigger the creation for MRG to make this research group for another maybe 5 years to work on those hot topics. So on this point, I would suggest that, we put this into the consideration. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Will. We are already a bit over time. I would like to give some conclusion remarks. First, thank you for attending. Thank you for the nice discussion. And also on the mailing list, I would like to acknowledge that several people already triggered some discussion threads. So this is good, should continue. Also, I mean, we are going through a transformation for this research group. It will take some months. We have to continue the ongoing work. This is important, not to lose these months. But we have to make a good transformation, complete it, and I will say now we need to also go over it. I mean, it's nice to have a stage where we discuss and explore new approaches, but we also need to conclude it, make it clear what is our plan, and then implement the plan, even if it's a research group. So I try to steer a bit this transformation, but it's a research group. Again, it's a collective approach. So your inputs, your discussion, your view are very important. Today we collected some of them. It will continue on the mailing list or on the wiki. I will try to make the announcement as soon as possible for the future meetings about what will be what we would like to discuss, and your feedback is also very much welcome on this. So thank you all. You are now free to get your lunch, and see you next time. Thank you very much.